Hi there and welcome back to my channel. This is Sean, the Honest Book Reviewer. This video is about July, each book I read for the month of July from the first book to the last book. For each book mentioned in this video, I'll have a more detailed review on my channel at some stage. Some of you there already, some in the future. Just depends on how quickly I get them ready for release. But anyway, let's dive right in now and talk about the first book. The Tournament by Matthew Reilly. It's an historical book. I like the setting. I like the mystery. I like the characters, well, some of them anyway. Some characters feel a bit one-dimensional and cliche. But there's one thing about this book I didn't like. There are certain scenes, and I can't describe what those scenes are in this video. But there's many of them, and they don't need to be there. It's like they're there for shock value, or they're there because the author thought they needed to be there or something. I don't know. They have no relationship to the rest of the story. They add nothing to the mystery or the setting. Take them away and the book is still what it is. I don't know why they're there. Anyway, the book is primarily about a young Queen Elizabeth I and her tutor. So in this book, Elizabeth is in her early teens and she and her tutor are going to Constantinople because of a chess tournament. A chess tournament where chess players from around the world are invited, like the best players from around the world. And while they're there, a murder happens, and her tutor is asked to investigate the murder. There's nobody else there to chaperone her at the time, so she tags along with him. And through her eyes, we witness the people he talks to, the investigation he makes. It's quite interesting the way that plays out in the story. So I do like the way the mystery plays out. I like the setting. The chess tournament, well, the chess games are quite dramatic in nature, more because of the characters that are playing chess and the people who are watching those games as well. They're not the best written chess games in a book I've read. I've read better in a story, but as tension goes, suspense goes, atmosphere, it's quite well done. So many reasons to like this book, but just those scenes that don't need to be there. Those scenes, I think, just have no purpose in the story. I don't know why they're there, and they do take my overall view of this book. Sea of Rust, written by C Robert Cargill. I like this book a lot. Dystopian sci-fi. And in this world building, all organic life is destroyed. It's all gone. And this world is just populated by androids and robots and AI. And we get history about how this happened in the story as well. I won't go into detail on that, but history is very important. And what's interesting about this book, so these androids and robots, they have no emotions or very little emotion. So some androids or robots were programmed with emotions, programmed by humans to serve certain purposes, so have certain emotions for those purposes. But some androids and robots don't have emotions at all. So it's interesting to have characters in a story that do things not because of emotion or feeling. They're doing things because they compute things, what's around them, and they compute the best action for that time. And that's interesting because as a reader, you're putting your emotions onto those characters. When things happen in the story, you think, oh, that's sad, that's terrible, that's joyful. Those characters don't feel those things at all. It's the reader who's feeling all those emotions on behalf of the characters. So that's interesting in a way that plays out in this book. I've not seen books before that play out in that way. But I like the overall structure of the book. I like the world. I like the characters. I like the story. I like everything about this. It was a fantastic book in my view. I recommend this very much. You Love Me by Caroline Kepnes. It's the third book in the You series. You know, that series about the stalker Joe. The stalker we're meant to see as being lovable, as being interesting and engaging. A stalker we're meant to feel empathy with. I don't. As characters go, I find Joe quite vile. I mean, in the first book, he was engaging because it was the first book in the series, it was fresh, it was new. He was doing awful things, but he was engaging because just the overall story was engaging in that first book. By this third book, everything feels done. It's just rehashing the things he does in the first book with a few tweaks here and there to make it feel different. It really felt like that when I read this. And it makes me wonder about this series. Joe does the same thing in each book. He's somewhere, becomes focused on somebody, starts stalking them, and he wants them in his life, and he wants to remove every obstacle that stops that from happening. The same thing in every book, just with a few tweaks here and there, add a few little different things into the story, but it's the same main plot. And is it just a cash grab? So is every book being written in this series and published a cash grab because the publisher and the author figure that there are big fans out there of Jo and the series for whatever reason, and they're going to buy each book when it's released? That's what I think sometimes about this series. I'm reading this series because I want to finish it, because, I like finishing series. Even if I don't really like everything about the books, I'm going to read the rest of the series. I am getting the series from the library, so I'm not buying it, so that's one thing anyway. But I don't know, I just feel like it's old things happening from the first book just being rehashed. I've only read 3 books so far, this being the 3rd book. I have the 4th book to read. I don't know if there's any more than 4 books, but I'm just hoping in the 4th book there's something fresh and new. There are little tweaks in this book that were good. I thought some characters were good, some tweaks were good, but overall it felt like books 1 and 2 just rehashed. Eruption, written by Michael Crichton and James Patterson. So, this is an idea by Michael Crichton, so I'm guessing he had notes stored away, he has fleshed out kind of the overall plot of this story, but it's written by James Patterson. And I thought, a blockbuster disaster book with 2 big names, this would be a fantastic read. And they're both authors I like. And I thought this book was going to be wonderful. It's not. It's not written very well. The overall structure, the way it plays out, the way the characters are in the book, doesn't suit this type of book, I think. And for a blockbuster disaster action type book, there's not much excitement in this story. Not much happens. Towards the end of the book, there are more things that happen. But then the conclusion of the story, well, I won't mention much about the conclusion other than it's terrible. I don't like it at all. And one key component of this plot just doesn't make sense. It's so stupid. So basically, we're going to have this big eruption of a volcano on an Hawaiian island. And there's an army base there, or nearby. And in volcanic tunnels, volcanic caves, the army have stored this dangerous substance in jars, in glass jars, and there's hundreds of them. And they're stored on rickety shelves in these tunnels. So when this eruption is going to happen, these earth tremors and things before the eruption, so some jars are falling over already, or they're cracking. And then the risk is, or the danger is, that lava from the eruption is going to go into these tunnels and interfere or react with this substance in these glass jars. That's going to cause devastation for the world, basically. I mean, as plots go, as plot ideas go, how silly is it to have the US Army storing this substance, a dangerous substance, in glass jars on rickety shelves in these volcanic tunnels? It just doesn't make sense. As plot ideas go, it's just silly in my view. So to have that as a big thing in a story like this is just silly, I think. It doesn't kind of pan out to be a great book in my view when you have an idea like that in the first place. Good Half Gone, written by Tarryn Fisher, a mystery thriller that has a great hook at the start. The start of the book, the main character, she's 15 years old and she witnesses her twin sister being abducted. They live with their grandmother, and when she reports the abduction to her grandmother and the police, her grandmother believes her, but the police don't. And the police are seen in this book, in that past narrative, so it's past and present narrative. In the past narrative, the police are seen as not believing her, just doubting her word, just saying her twin sister went off willingly or she ran away or something. It seems like they don't care. They're written as not caring about it at all in the story. And that's my first problem with this book. The person abducted is a minor, and it's written like the police don't care. Well, I don't believe that. In any abduction that involves a minor, I would think the police will be involved straight away and very strongly. So for me, using that as a plot device doesn't make sense. Anyway, put that aside, the present narrative is a big issue for me in this story. In the present day narrative, the main character, I think, is 10 years older, so in her mid-20s, and she's going to be an intern at a hospital from the criminally insane. And she gets the job without any deep reference checks. So for me, that's a flag as well, because how could anybody get a job like that without having very thorough reference checks going on? So anyway, she goes to this island, and the hospital is on an island. You get there by ferry only. And you think, okay, a hospital for the criminally insane on an island, you get there by ferry only, it's cut off from everything else. You think it'd be great atmosphere. It's not. There's no great atmosphere about that at all in the story. It jumps to her then working in this hospital, and she's there for a particular reason. I won't tell you what it is. But that reason seems to be thrown away because then we get a romance angle, a romance between her and the main doctor in this hospital. That seems to overshadow everything else. That was disappointing because I wanted more tension, suspense around that mystery, around her hunt for certain things in the story. To have that kind of pushed aside for a romance, very disappointing. And then the ending. This goes off the rails at the end. I mean off the rails in a big way. There should be a scale actually for books to go off the rails towards the end. A scale where you can say, okay, off the rails in a small way, like 1 out of 10, and then 10 out of 10 in a big way. And this book would be 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10. It goes off the rails in a huge way, doesn't make sense, and it kind of ruins almost the story. So there are good things in this book. There are definitely some good things, but a lot of this book is just really, I don't know, that romance angle that was forced didn't really work for me, and that off the rails moment at the end didn't work either. You Like It Darker by Stephen King, so his latest collection of short stories and novellas. There are many people out there who love this. They rave about it and they say it's wonderful. I don't think so. There are 12 stories in this collection, and most of them are below average for me. Some of them are great, they stand out. None of them are perfect in my view, but I think overall it's disappointing as a collection. It kind of feels like he was just pulling things out of drawers and off shelves and saying, okay, that will do. This felt like there were things that were hidden away and he didn't want them out there for whatever reason, but he put them in his collection to fill up pages. I get that impression about some of the stories in this collection. But like I said, there are 12 in this collection, so I think different people will definitely like different stories in this collection. It seems like many readers out there love everything about this collection. I don't. I was disappointed, and overall, just around average for me when you rate them out overall. The Darkest Night, edited by Lindy Ryan. It's a collection of short stories, I think 22 in all, and the short stories are focused on Christmas and winter, but with a horror twist, a dark twist. And when I heard about this, I was intrigued. How can you get these short stories, these horror stories, and link them to Christmas and winter? I want to know all about that. That's the reason I read this collection. There are big names in this collection, but for me, it's the stories about not the big names that stand out the most. And I think there were maybe 4 stories I loved, another 3 I thought were good. Most of them I was disappointed in. But the 4 I loved I thought were really good, and with 22 stories in the collection, there's something there for everybody, I think. So obviously different readers will like different stories in this collection. One of the stories I liked had a twist on that naughty and nice list, you know, with kids being good all year to get on that good list for Santa. So the twist is, this elf turns up at this kid's house and he says, look, so many kids are trying to be good all the time. And it's exhausting for elves. There's more work for elves because there are too many kids on the nice list. So I want you to be naughty. And if you're being naughty, you're actually being nice because you're giving elves a break. So he convinces this kid to be naughty. And the twists and turns and the end of this short story is just brilliant. The things that happen. That's an example of one story in this collection. There are other stories, of course, all different varied stories in this collection, but all have like a Christmas theme or a winter theme. And reading this collection makes me want to read different stories from some of these authors. And I think that's brilliant. They have 22 authors in this collection. And for me, I don't know them all. So it makes me want to read more from them. So you get an impression about different authors in this collection that you don't know about beforehand. A Killer Clue, written by Victoria Gilbert, an arc read for me, and a cozy mystery, and book 2 in the Hunter and Clue series. It's enjoyable, it's fun, it's a cozy mystery of course, we have cozy elements and mystery elements. It's a murder mystery, but there's a secondary mystery in here as well. And it's the secondary mystery I like the most. It's about a mysterious lady in a painting. I enjoyed that so much I found it compelling, like a treasure hunt in the story. And the main mystery, it was still good, it was still strong, not as strong as the first book in this series though. So for me, that was a bit disappointing, but you get that in some series. I mean, in every book, in every series, every mystery is not going to be as strong as the previous one or the next one. So you get variations, but I'm glad we had that secondary mystery. And I think that secondary mystery is going to lead on to the third book, and I hope there's a third book in this series because I'll read that straight away. Puzzle Me a Murder, written by Roz Noonan, an ARC read for me, a cozy mystery, and the first in a new series. The thing that grabbed my attention first about this book is the main characters enjoy jigsaw puzzles, and they're prominent in this book and the mystery. And I like that because I like jigsaw puzzles as well, so I could engage with that in this story. The mystery is strong. I like the way the mystery develops in this book. It develops quite carefully and cleverly. It doesn't feel forced, it's very organic. The thing about this though is the three main characters. I don't know that I love them yet as characters. I mean, I enjoy them. They're engaging. They're fun, they're vibrant, but I think sometimes their emotions in this story don't match what's happening in the setting or the scene. I think there's a disconnect sometimes in the story. But overall, it's a good book. I will read more in this series. I hope there's more. But I enjoyed this. I especially enjoyed the mystery. I don't think the culprit will puzzle people really in this book. It might be too obvious. But despite that, the getting there, the investigation was good. It was enjoyable and fun, and some of the characters are fun as well. In fact, the three main characters, they kind of remind me of characters from that TV show The Golden Girls, in different ways. Just their personality, things they do, things they say, or how they act in the story. But overall, a good book. I do recommend it. August Moon, written by Jess, an ARC read for me. It's a mystery. It's a romance comedy mystery, and I thought this series was cozy mystery when I started it, but it's not. Anyway. The mystery in this book is the strongest out of the 4 books so far I've read. It's a dark mystery, a little bit twisted, some good twists in there as well, some good characters. The author does take some risks in this story, and I think they may be divisive to some readers. I'm okay with them because they're tied up with the character. And I've read books before where I don't like what characters do or they say. And if they're tied up with the character, if I don't feel like it's the author putting their own personal points of view into the book and forcing those things into the story, that's fine, I think, because it's all about that character, what that character feels, their character development. And you're not going to like every character in every book. You don't need to. You don't like every person you meet in the world. You don't like everything that happens in the world either. So books shouldn't be like that. You shouldn't expect to like everything in a story. So I'm okay with reading books where I don't like characters for certain reasons, because it's all about that character. So I do think some readers are going to find things in this book a bit challenging, maybe a bit divisive, and maybe they have negative thoughts about the book or the author because of that. But when I take a step back and look at it, I just think it's the character. It's not the author. Maybe the author does think certain things in the same way, but doesn't come across like that in the book. The Last Murder at the End of the World by Stuart Turton. It's a dystopian sci-fi mystery. I enjoyed this. It's a bit of a trip. It takes a bit of getting used to in this story, but it's inventive. It's unique. I like the world building. I like the setting. I like the mystery a lot. I like the race against time as well. There's a race against time aspect in this mystery. If it's not solved in like 107 hours or something, then the people in this book are going to die. And then the last people on Earth. In this dystopian setting, a mysterious fog has destroyed all organic life on Earth except for this one island, this one Greek island. And the fog was being held back by these devices. But when this person is murdered in this book, those devices stop working, and the only way to get them working again is to solve the murder. So a great situation, a great setting, a good mystery, good characters. There's great use of doubt in this book as well. There's characters where you have assumptions, where you learn about them and then think different things. There's so much going on in this story. I thought this book was well done, except towards the end of the book. Towards the end, there are things that feel tacked on. The things that don't feel consistent around characters, around just the tone and feel of the story. It impacted my view of the overall story, but overall I did enjoy the read. Skulduggery Pleasant by Landy. It's YA urban fantasy, and I enjoyed this. I had so much fun reading this. It's not a serious read. I mean, it's quirky, it's a bit comical, but it's just fun. But the world building is great in this story. And it's like this magic world hidden in the real world. And the characters you meet are just brilliant. I think it's also a bit tongue-in-cheek. It's like the author setting this up to be satire in a way. And I'm not sure if he's poking fun at just the way characters are built or designed, or poking fun at the genre, the urban fantasy genre. I'm not sure. But it feels a bit tongue-in-cheek. It's definitely not a serious book, but it is well written. It's got great characters, got a great pace, it's got a great tone. I just love the way it all plays out. So I enjoyed this a lot. I can't wait to read more in this series as well. Looking forward to it very much. Darling Girls, written by Sally Hepworth. It's a cold case mystery. I enjoyed this a lot. It's a quiet book. One of those books that doesn't rely on big shocks, big reveals. It does have some twists and turns in the story, but they're not like in your face. They're not explosive. It just relies on how those characters react. It feels very subtle in a lot of ways in this story, and I enjoy that. I like the way this mystery is structured. We have past and present narrative. In the present narrative, we have three women who think of themselves as sisters. They're not sisters by blood. They spent some time in the same house in the foster system. And they're still very close in their adult years. And they get contacted by a police detective who says they've found bones of somebody in the grounds of the house they spent time with all those years ago. So it makes these three women think about the past. And they make assumptions about who the bones belong to, who was discovered in this ground. And we learn so much about their history and about themselves in both narratives. And they've got this great bond in the story as well. This book is about family, but also it's about secrets, and also about, can the past shape who you are in the future? Of course it can, but can your future shape itself as well? Are you what your past is, or can you change yourself in the future as well? So that's all linked in this story as well. There's multi-layered, great characters, a great mystery. This will keep you guessing. I love this book. A Rule Against Murder, written by Louise Penney. It's a mystery, and it's the fourth book to feature protagonist Aman Gamache. Prior to this book, the first three books all took place in the Three Pines, or the murders did anyway. This book doesn't. It's set in like this big inn in a secluded area in the woods, away from Three Pines. So finally, the murder that's not involved in that small village. So that small village's crime rate will drop a bit, I think. This mystery is fantastic. It's built very well. The setting, I think, is brilliant for a mystery like this, a murder mystery. It's a peaceful setting. And what's interesting is the owner of this big inn in the woods. She has a rule, an unwritten rule, that says no murders should happen here. Not even hunting of animals, killing of animals. And now there's a murder of a person that's broken that peace, broken that unspoken rule. So for me, that was interesting. It provided a different layer into the story. Aman is at this inn at the time of the murder because he and his wife were having a getaway for their anniversary. Of course, that's ruined. So now there's a murder to solve. So he gets his team in, and they start investigating. And the victim is there because of a family reunion, and the rest of the family is there as well. But we do have a tie-in to the Three Pines village in this book, because some of the people in this reunion are from that village. And we have Peter and Clara. They're married, and it's Peter's side of the family that's there for the reunion. And we find out they're quite wealthy. We also find out that Peter kind of shuns their money. He doesn't want it. We find out more about Peter in this story as well, about his past, and also about some things he's done in the present as well, we didn't realise before. So I like that deep dive into his character because it brings him into the forefront more, but we learn things about him that aren't so nice. So for me, this book, like other books in this series, has great character exploration and depth. It has themes as well about different emotions, about different feelings as well in this book. So we have themes of possessiveness, about jealousy, about secrets, about family. All those things combined in this story and are tied in different characters to the murder itself, into so much in this book is involved in those themes. So I like that about this book and the series overall so far. It's not just about the mysteries, about the murder mysteries. It's about characters, and characters really drive this story forward. The Tainted Cup, written by Robert Jackson Bennett. It's the last book I read in July. It's a fantasy. It's a fantasy mystery. It's also immersive high fantasy, which I enjoy. And I like the mystery to a point. It's not the best mystery I've read, not the best fantasy I've read, but combined, it makes for a pretty engaging story. I like the world building. I thought it was well done. Very unique, I think, in this story. I like some of the characters, not all of them. I think a lot of the characters in this book are a bit one-dimensional, but one character is brilliant. So in this mystery, we have two investigators. We have a head investigator called Anna. We have her assistant called Din. And Anna, I think, is a fantastic character, the best character in this story by far. Din is also enjoyable, but not as much as Anna. But what I like about this book is the way the mystery plays out in the fantasy setting, because the author can kind of have fun with it. The author can develop unique ways of death because it's a fantasy setting. It doesn't have to make sense to the real world, and the author does. I think the author kind of went all out in this book, and it's made for a very engaging part of the book in those moments where we have scenes of death, where we have the way the death plays out as well, the method of death. So I like that in this book. I like the settings we see. I like the way in this book, it's the first book in a series, and I like that we have this big area called the Empire, but a lot of the action takes place in small sections. So it's focused on those sections. We get to know those areas quite intimately, get to know other characters quite intimately in those settings as well. And the social structure in those kind of small settings comes out more vividly, I think, in the story and more carefully, because we're not given this whole world at once. So I do like when you have immersive high fantasy that's introduced to the reader in a very careful way, because you don't want to overburden readers in books like this, because it'd be so easy to do, because you're immersing the reader in a strange world, a strange environment. You've got to teach them about the environment as well as having a book and a plot that's engaging. That balance, I think, is not always easy, but I think in this book the author found that balance and kept my attention in the book because of it. There you have all the books I read for the month of July. I wonder, have you read any of these books, or do you plan to read them in the future? If so, let me know in the comments. So as I said at the start of this video, for each book I mention, I'll have a more detailed review on my channel. Some may be there now, some in the future. Just keep an eye out for them, and subscribe to my channel if you don't miss out on a review you're waiting for. On my channel I review books from all different genres. Check out my channel and subscribe. On the screen now is a link to another video for a book I'm sure you'll enjoy.